has to be one of the more eagerly awaited clashes in this particular group. Even if you happen to be an India fan and only looking out for the games India play, but in terms of everybody's fortunes, the other two biggies in the group, if I could refer to them as that, we're not going to knock the associate nations anymore or anyone. There's no minnows anymore. But when it comes to Pakistan taking on South Africa, it is a big clash. And while there may be just a few mathematics associated with it, at least for Pakistan, there still is enough significance for this particular fixture. Here we are on Cricbuzz Live to assess it, and we've got an old team gathered right here. I'm joined by Joy Bhattacharya and Harsha Bhogle. How chilly is it, Harsha, where you are now? That's the only question I have to ask.
I'm in my room with the temperature set to 23, 24 degrees, so I'm doing fine. But it's a lot better today. It's nice and bright. I'm in Adelaide, though. I hope it's nice and bright in Sydney as well. Though I hope Joy will also take a huge exception to your opening remarks, where you said you're with old colleagues.
Of course I will.
Yeah, it's a team. It's our old team, not meant in any other sense of the word.
Yeah, of course. And also to say that, there are producers out here who probably weren't born when we met or whatever it is. Okay, we don't want to go there any further.
We won't, but Joy, big clash today, Pakistan, South Africa. Obviously, the entire significance is that Pakistan will need a few other results to go their way. For South Africa, it's pretty much in their own hands.
Yes, but I think the most important thing is that if you look at the table, if Pakistan beats South Africa, and I won't say upsets is the wrong word, I will leave Shakib to use that. If Pakistan beats South Africa, and they've never lost to South Africa, and if you look at it that way, I think it opens up the tournament because it sets up an intriguing India-Zimbabwe clash, which may not be the easiest of clashes on the final day. So, it sets up a lot of things. I think for the sake of the tournament, Pakistan beating Australia is fantastic. For the sake of the Indian fan, of course, you'd like to see South Africa win. And obviously, we have no doubt which way the South African fan is thinking. If they do this, I think the other interesting thing is there are people who are looking at the other group as well. And people are not going to dock a match because they can go up and down. I think it's far too risky and, it's just not on. But
I'm glad you said that, Joy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said people are not going to dock a match because I'm a little tired of hearing that.
But Harsha, we love our little head-to-head records. And if you look at the history of these two teams in this competition, the last time Pakistan won in any sort of format in an ICC World Cup was way back in 1999, or rather the last time South Africa beat Pakistan. It's Pakistan who have that record. Was a match that featured both Mark Boucher and Saqlain Mushtaq in 1999.
They've got a fantastic, and I really do hope that Pakistan are looking at those positives. They're looking at the fact that they've got a really good fast bowling lineup, that it's early season, the fast bowlers are doing well. I know they're up against a team that is actually bowled even better than them if it's possible. And they're looking at numbers like these saying, yes, South Africa is a very good side. Back in 99, around that time, South Africa were very, very good teams. So if Pakistan have beaten them, I hope they're looking inward for qualification and not listening to people talking about a wet pitch or a fake fielding somewhere that is coming in the way of their qualification. I really hope, because it's a good side. I hope the players are not thinking that way. I know the fact that they've lost Fakhar Zaman is an issue, because I genuinely believe when the ball is coming on a good surface, he's a big addition to their batting order. But they've got to look at where they are. If they get a good start again from Babar and Rizwan, because I think the conditions allow that to happen. Look how Virat Kohli is building his innings. I think these are actually the conditions where Babar and Rizwan can play to their strengths. And if they can do that, I think this game is open. And Joy's point is absolutely valid, because if Pakistan beats South Africa today, and on that high, they go and beat Bangladesh, their net run rate will actually be better than India's. So India will have no option but to go and win that game against Zimbabwe. I mean, if India lose that game to Zimbabwe, India will be out if Pakistan win their two remaining games, because India actually dropped their net run rate in the win yesterday against Bangladesh.
Yeah, fair point. If we can just go back to those numbers as we update you with the toss result of the head-to-head that started in the 2009 World T20 and on to St. Lucia, where they played in 2010. Have a look at 4 out of the 5 victories. Pakistan put runs on the board and defended them against South Africa. Now, in context of this, they've won the toss and decided to bat. Now, it could be a little bit about the history, Joy, but it's also about what's been happening in the present in this tournament. Get runs on the board, more chances to win in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this tournament is happening. A side like England, which was the quintessential chasing side, the chasing template, England from 2015 to 20, they mastered it. And England, a team like England, are now batting first on a regular basis. And I think what Pakistan would be looking at, there's this term in boxing, they talk about good boxers, but sometimes they say this boxer has a glass jaw. A glass jaw means that if you can hit him hard early and you hit him on the jaw, he's going to be scared. And I feel what Pakistan will be looking at when they put some total on the board, can you hit the jaw of that South African team? Can you get a couple of early wickets? Because this is not a South African team which has needed to be resilient so far. And I think, therefore, with the kind of team they are, the kind of team they've constructed, they're saying, if you remember, even from match one, Babar Azam was not talking 180, 190 against India. He was saying 160, let's put 160. And for 160, putting 160 on the board, I feel Babar Azam, Rizwan, they're the perfect batsmen for Pakistan if you're trying to look at 160. If you're looking at 180, 200, perhaps not. But for 160, they're perfect.
So having said that, Sydney has been the one haven for high totals batting first, in excess of 180. So which side will they look at? Look at these totals batting first at the SCG. New Zealand 200, that's the big opening game of the tournament. South Africa themselves put on 200 against Bangladesh and won that convincingly. India, maybe they underperformed in that sense in the context of who they were playing, 179 at Sydney, and then New Zealand again put on 167.
But wait a minute, look at those margins of victory. Look at the margins of victory, which means if you put 160, how many people have come close? And I think that is the one thing they'll be looking at and saying that let's play within this thing. When India got 179, we also felt that perhaps they should have got a bit more. As it turned out, it was a fairly comprehensive win.
But Harsha, in terms of Pakistan, you did mention it in terms of leaving all those X factors aside. What would it do to the landscape of Pakistan cricket were this victory to come? Because they've gone through their ups and downs, particularly for that one man in the driver's seat, Babar Azam.
I think it would drag them back towards positivity. I sometimes look at Pakistan and I think they were that close to winning against India, and that would have kick-started their campaign, that would have taken them to another plane. But since then, the bowling's still been pretty good, but I think they're still very unsure of what their best batting side is, because they've got two batters in their side, in the squad, who I get the feeling they don't want to pick. And so they're stuck with a certain batting approach. So even today, for example, I think they've gone and picked the sub who's just come in, Mohammad Haris, who's come in, ahead of Khushdil Shah and ahead of Haider Ali as well. So, yeah, there you are. They've not picked Asif Ali again. So there's three batters that they don't want to pick. And they've gone in with the six bowlers. I still think the bowling is the best bowling side that they can pick. If Shaheen Shah Afridi gets the ball to swing and if he's in rhythm early on, if he starts to get his pace going, then that attack is complete, but it's a very, very high quality bowling attack. The question is, can they score enough runs? Because Wasim at 8 is a bit of a tonker, but not too much more as we saw. So if they can score enough runs, now batting first, Babar is looking at what the others have done. He'll try to build the innings, which is right for him, but it'll be interesting to see whether they can put enough runs on the board. Because South Africa are in unbelievable batting form. You look at Miller, you look at Markram, they are batting so well.
Well, the first thing Babar needs to do to build an innings is get to double figures. Then he can start building. He hasn't got past the first floor of that building.
That's a hard part.
He's just out of the basement.
By the way, someone came up with this stat. Ever since Babar said to Virat, this too shall pass, Virat is averaging 70.
And how much is Babar averaging after that statement is a moot point. But yeah.
So maybe Virat should send him a message.
I think Virat should.
He's a
after the World Cup, though.
If he bats well, it's worth watching that game. Because Rizwan is like this little chip and charge kind of player. Chop one ball here, tonk one ball over there. He's a very street smart kind of player. Babar is a pedigree. I'm not saying Rizwan isn't, but when Babar bats well, you want. So I think it'll be crucial. If he goes early today, that'll be a big blow for them, I fear.
Yeah, well, that's something they'll have to change. Again, we go back to someone like a KL Rahul. We were saying maybe just one stroke away. Forget one innings away. And that 1-6 from KL Rahul kick-started him and we could see he was in a different zone. If Babar can get that one Babar-like stroke away, it can change so much. But Joy, just your reaction on Mohammad Haris. We were trying in our preview to talk about who could possibly come in. We were surmising between the two Alis, Haider Ali and Asif Ali. Do they want the middle order solidity? Do they want the finisher? They've gone for neither. They've surprised us. Maybe they know something that the rest of the world doesn't.
I just remember Imran Khan in the 2019 tournament talking about something which he referred to as Railu Katta. So Railu Katta is basically a calf who doesn't know exactly what he's doing and he's running all over the place. And what Imran Khan said about Railu Katta was this fact that, getting a lot of all-rounders, that means you really don't know what you want to do. So you get a lot of all-rounders in the middle. Somebody will give me something. And I think that's the big problem, which, they have proper batsmen. They have Asif Ali. They have batsmen who can really blast the ball. But they somehow prefer to be going to all-rounders who seem to be giving them more depth in bowling. But you actually wouldn't end up using that many bowlers. So I think one of the things that Imran had spoken about at that time was saying, so horses for courses. Get 5 really good bowlers to do the job for you. Get batsmen to do the job for you. What Pakistan is doing is packing its side with a whole lot of players who are basically, you've got all-rounders. And
don't say bits and pieces, Joy.
no, I'm not going to use those words, bits and pieces, but Railu Katta is a much better term. If you think about how they work, Railu Katta is a much better. But the other interesting thing about it is, you've got a guy. Now, suppose you picked 7 batsmen in this tournament or 8 batsmen in this tournament. You said, okay, these are 7 batsmen who are coming with me. Now, if a batsman, that means these are the best 7 batsmen in your team. Okay, or these are the best 7 batsmen in your country at this point in time. Now, if one of those batsmen goes out, you bring in a replacement, definitely Mohammad Haris, or whoever it is. That if he goes straight into the team, what does it mean? That means the guys that you're selected in the first place, you don't have faith in them. I mean, that's my biggest problem. That you have 2 solid batsmen who are there, who were picked ahead by your selection committee. You've called in a guy as a replacement and put him straight in. And what does that tell you about what they're thinking or how they're thinking? And that for me is the issue.
Yeah, well, that once again, to remind you, the replacement for Fakhr Zaman is, in fact, Mohammad Haris. But what about the opposition? So many talking points over there. Does Tabraiz Shamsi get straight into the side? And South Africa will be bowling first. And let's see if we can answer that question for you. And the reason is, one of the forced changes they've had to make, of course, is Miller has to make way for Heinrich Klaasen. That's due to an injury. And just as we did say, there's no way you're getting Lungisani and Giri out. If Shamsi comes in, it's for Keshav Maharaj. And I think that's the one they're doing.
Yeah, I was the one person who I vehemently protested yesterday. Both of you said that no, Shamsi will come in for Maharaj. I said they cannot drop Maharaj. They always, when they have to pick a spinner, they always pick Maharaj over Shamsi. But hey, they picked him.
I don't think Harsha, after that last performance, and Giri's even left the field.
No, and I think the one way they believe they can attack Pakistan is through pace and movement. So Paner will provide the movement. Nokia is bowling like the wind. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's bowled a slow ball. I think he bowled one slow ball that was 132, which was a sort of 15-16 Ks drop from his normal speed. So he's bowling like the wind. Lungisani and Giri is bowling really well. Rabada is due a good performance because he's bowling well without getting any reward. So I think their plan would be to just come really hard at Pakistan. But the absence of Miller is a huge blow. And I met him at the airport and I said, whatever you do, man, don't lose this form. I said, you got runs against India, but it's just been so much fun watching you. But I think it's a huge blow because this Miller is a very solid Miller. Wasn't it Ajay Jadeja who said that Miller is batting like Dhoni? So this loss is huge. Well, I mean, Klaasen's a very good player, but I think Miller's a big loss.
Yeah, it is. And especially now in the context of the fact that South Africa are chasing, you saw what happened against India. If there were a few moments when India actually started pushing back into the game, moment David Miller walked out there seemed to be some reassurance when you were a South African fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's strange though, from that glory days of 2014-15, and then he suddenly goes off the radar for 5 years. And to rediscover yourself, and I think that's happened to a couple of South Africans. Miller's one, Wayne Parnell is the same direction, very talented cricketer, under 19, star for them. Riley Russo, again, all these stars have sort of gone away and come back, and perhaps that's the only thing that gives this South African team a little more resilience, because these are players who've seen bad times and good times. And I think that is the only thing that they'll be depending on, the fact that, they have that. But Miller is for both Gujarat and for South Africa. He was there.
And the numbers do back it up. I mean, it's not just all of us singing his praises just because we like the guy. 89.66 his average this year in run chases, 165 the strike rate. I mean, that's something South Africa are going to miss today.
Straight away, the numbers are telling you, when you see a strike rate of 165, it's fantastic. But the moment you see an average of 89.66, it means there's a lot of not outs. And that means he's finishing the games for you. So that is what you ideally want from your player, not just the strike rate, but when he's in, he's taking the games close and he's finishing them for you, which is where the average of 89, 90 comes from. So I think it's a huge blow for them. What South Africa want more than anything else when it's their turn to bat is for Temba Bavuma to get some runs. We've been talking about this Temba issue ever since South Africa came to India to play those games just before the T20 World Cup started. So it'll just make things a little easier for them. But I think for the moment, their job should be to keep Pakistan under 135, 140. Because if there's one side that can defend with its bowling, I think it's Pakistan. So South Africa will be cognizant of the fact, because they wanted to bat first, that they'll have to keep Pakistan down to a lowish score.
Yes, of course, it has been the talking point of this tournament. The captains, which captain is going to fire the most? Butler's sort of gone off that list right now. Temba's there, Babar Azam is there, Rohit Sharma is definitely still there. He'll want to get off the list of unperforming captains in that sense. But we'll see.
Kane Williamson's there.
Kane Williamson definitely there. Yeah, so it's a lot of them. And even in the smaller team, someone like a Scott Edwards, not necessarily that far up the order, but even he has not contributed as much except from behind the stumps. But Joy, just to finish off on David Miller, a little bit of franchise cricket has also contributed to his growth. This year, of course, in the IPL to be the part of the Gujarat Titans. And even in the CPL, he was entrusted the captaincy of the Barbados franchise, and that really took him to newer heights.
Absolutely. I think he has rediscovered himself as a player, and it's really important. In fact, that's the one thing I was trying to look at, the Cricbuzz app and wondering, what injury is it? Because I think it's going to play a huge part in this tournament. If it is a niggle, which is he's out for one match, it's bad for South Africa. But if he's out for the tournament, that is a devastating blow for for them. So we don't know exactly what's happened. We're waiting for further news on it. But Miller is a crucial factor in the way he plays. And as he said, for me, Miller is the way he's playing. This is the Michael Bevan of the late 90s and early 2000s. Finishing games, staying not out, finishing games, completing them himself, not depending on anyone. And that's why, combination of that kind of strike rate and that kind of average is absolutely unbelievable.
But while we do talk about the quicker bowlers and the impact that they've had on both sides, we were sort of doing a toss-up between the two fast bowling attacks. Now that we have seen Tabraiz Shamsi get into the lineup, Pakistan, India, the subcontinent sides are known to be able to counter spin as well. Will Shamsi be a factor, Harsha, against a team that should play spin well?
But look, he's a really good bowler. His average, his sort of economy rate of above 10 was against India. For some reason, India just took a liking to him and went after him. I don't know if Pakistan will have the freedom to go after him, because if they do, it opens an opportunity for him as well. But look, against Pakistan, those numbers are excellent. His economy is under 7. He's taking a wicket virtually every game. Look at that strike rate, 19.5. So he's got sort of 1.2 wickets a game. So he's doing well. And if the top order gives you wickets, if Rabada gives you wickets up front, or Nokia or Lungi give you wickets up front, then he's the perfect bowler to come back, because Maharaj will defend well for you. Whereas Shamsi will give you wickets. And I think that is the big difference between them. Shamsi will give you wickets. If they need another spinner, they can go with a couple of overs of Aiden Markram if required. So, but I think Shamsi should be fine. He bowled pretty well in the last game too. There's something about him, he seems to blunder along as he comes in. His head is in front. He comes along like this, but he's almost like someone who's swimming, but is not exactly a proper freestyle swimmer. But he's a seriously good bowler. He's a seriously good bowler, and I won't be surprised if he picks up a couple of wickets. I won't be surprised at all.
And of course, don't forget the Shamsi celebrations. He may not quite bring it out in ICC tournaments at times, but when he plays franchise cricket, he pulls out all sorts of celebrations. He's got the masked marauder, the magic. Of late, he had the phone call that came back in, takes off his shoe, makes a call. Imran Tahir joined him in that. They made 2 phone calls together. The amount they spent on their telephone bills just from that.
At least he doesn't run 100 meters like Imran Tahir does. The only time I ever see Imran Tahir running on a field is when he's celebrating after getting a wicket.
But Joy, could this also be, if the attack is firing, you've got Rabada, Nokia, Lungisani Ngiri and Parnell firing, that a team like Pakistan will say, look, where's our get out? Who do we hit? And that could lead to more Shamsi wickets.
Absolutely. They'll have to target somebody. And in conditions like this, given the way Pakistan plays, and again, you're talking about a middle order who's not really, Fakhar Zaman is out, Shan Masood comes in after a couple of matches. He didn't start their tournament. this thing, Hyder Ali is not there. They don't, Haris has suddenly come in. So this is it's an order in tumult, and they don't, that the only thing you have to ask Pakistan is to ask yourself is whose role is to do what. And they must be very clear about it. And obviously, if they've bought Haris in, they have some sort of a strategy in mind. But at this point in time, from outside sitting, it seems very difficult to make out what it is.
But whether or not Aiden Markram gets a role with the ball, and somehow Temba Bavuma and South Africa seem to like throwing the ball to him for at least one over, he will definitely play a role with bat in hand, especially in the absence of David Miller. Klaasen's good, but he's sort of coming into the side. He has big boots to fill. All the more responsibility, Harsha, on Aiden Markram to know that if it's a run chase, if it's a big run chase, he'll have to be solid in there.
Yeah, and he's just found himself. If above him, there's those two left-handers above him. If Quinton de Kock and Riley Russo have got them off to a great start, Russo especially, if you see in recent times, a bit of an all-or-nothing player. He's either getting the big score or he's getting out early. But if Russo gets going, it just helps Markram, because Markram is one of those old classical players. He'll take a little time and then he will explode. He's got a fabulous strike rate, which tells you that he can make up for it. Sometimes he'll just go for it, depending on the situation. But he is one of the T20 world's most improved players in recent times. I mean, we always looked at Markram and said, wow, he can play, just as we did in Klaasen, because Klaasen always plays well against India. But you looked at Markram and said, wow, he can play. And since he's moved to the middle order, I saw those numbers. I'd like to see if those numbers also coincide with him coming into the middle order, because he bats at 4 and he'll rotate the strike. He can play the big hits. He's a fantastic finisher. He's a very powerful batsman, and he's got shots all around. So in the absence of Miller, I really think he holds that side together, and I've a lot of time for him. And even during the auction last year, I kept thinking, right, who's going to go for Markram? I think, Joy, we were having a conversation. I thought Aiden Markram would be one of my first picks among the overseas players, because he's a gun fielder and he can give you 2 overs pretty safely in every game. And he's just bloomed beautifully as a batsman.
Well, I think even in the IPL, he was used as a bowler more often than not, Aiden Markram. But just in this middle order conundrum, I was speaking to a few South African fans / journalists, and they had a feeling that maybe Temba needs a change, not in terms of pulling him out, but just a change in the order, because he is seen as a bit of a middle order player, maybe more in 50-over cricket. Could there be a case of maybe him not just striding out when he has been? It's called
as, and he's one of our analysts downstairs, just one floor below, and he says it himself. Yeah, Temba has the Parthiv Patel problem, which is that for the first 6 overs, he can hit it when the field is in. But once the field is out, in a 50-over cricket, you can have 100, 110, 120. He cannot afford, he doesn't have the strength to be able to consistently penetrate fields when the fields go back. So the problem with Temba Bavuma is if you have to bat him, he has to bat 1, 2, max 3. Even 3 is a stretch. I think you have to bat him 1 or 2. And that's the problem. By putting him into the side, you're in a situation where not only do you put him there, you have to put him in opening. There is no other place to take him. And that, basically, South Africa is living with that situation, having to deal with that situation going forward. And look, I actually feel really sorry for that young man. Because he's a really, if you see his interviews, he's a reasonable person. He's a thinking cricketer. He thinks about his team. He thinks a lot about how the game can be constructed. So I'm sure he's completely aware of the situation that fate has put him into. And it can't be easy for him. So, was Parthiv around when was...
And Joy makes a valid point, Gautam. Yeah, Joy makes a valid point. Are you batting in a position because that is the best position for you? Or are you batting there because you cannot bat anywhere else? Which means it is a deficiency that is putting you in the spot rather than a qualification that's putting you in that spot. And I fear with Temba Bavuma, he's opening the batting because, as Joy said, he can't bat anywhere else. And he has to play. And so they've pushed him up to the top of the order, hoping he can find the gaps, hit a few runs, and then leave the stage for everybody else. It's putting a little bit of pressure on Quinton de Kock and Riley Russo, especially if Pakistan bat first and put up a big score and Temba doesn't get going. So that is the worry. Not that he's chosen to open the batting because that's best for the side, but because he doesn't seem to be able to create an impact anywhere else. And that is the problem. And if Temba scores runs today, I think he'll just lift the side, because it's very difficult to demand performance from your team if you're not producing it yourself. And I think while he might be a very popular member of the side, it'll just make him feel good. It'll make him believe that he has a right to demand. I know all leaders say you must separate your role as a batsman and from your role as a captain. But I just think it will make things a lot easier for South Africa if Temba goes out and scores runs today.
Yeah, pretty much like Kane Williamson. You can't get a more popular member of a side. You can't get a more popular captain, a shrewd captain. But again, the separation of Williamson, the captain, and Williamson, the batsman. And the other captain we've been talking about here, Harsha, I'm going to put you on the spot there. Here's a little thing that we're going to say, or little Harsha's little advice. You know Babar the person. You've observed Babar the cricketer. You've analysed Babar the cricketer. What is your advice to Babar Azam at this stage before he walks out to bat?
I think he should just switch off from all the scores. I mean, I sound like this guru telling people what to do, which is not the case. I'm just thinking, I'm just observing. I think he's far too good a player to be failing that often. I don't think he should worry about strike rates just now. Luckily, he's come to a tournament where he doesn't have to worry that much about strike rates. For him, the issue has always been, can he score quickly enough? And all of us have pointed out that his strike rate's not enough, that when him and Rizwan bat for too long, they throttle the side a little bit, ensure that they can't score as many as they might have. But in these conditions, they're actually made for him to build an innings. Maybe Sydney is a lesser of those venues because it's the highest scoring venue there. But generally, as we've seen with Virat, if you go 10, 12 runs at run a ball and then start to build from there, it's still okay in this tournament because the fast bowlers up front are bowling well. You ensure you don't lose wickets. So these conditions are actually created for people like Virat and Babar. And he should just say, I'm Babar Azam, you know. I'm one of the world's great players at the moment. I will just play normal cricket. I will not worry about strike rate today.
But Joy, as far as we are all concerned, another friend from our group who shall remain unnamed as far as he's concerned, and all of us also, Harsha, you'll always be Guru!
What's the latest from him?
I don't know, he's gone off the radar.
It must be the food in this.
Let's keep that aside for the moment because we've got so much cricket to look forward to. I think let's just finish off where we started, talking about this match as the battle of the quick bowlers. And we've put up a little graphic here. And Harsha, you first, and then Joy. If you can just have a look at these and spot the difference.
I know. I know Gautam with a straight face is just being a little naughty because I've gone out on a limb and said Pakistan is the best bowling side in this T20 World Cup. But at the moment, their issue is that Wayne Parnell is out bowling Shaheen Afridi. And I would not have said that any other time, but it's just that Afridi has not quite, what's the expression for it that was very popular some years ago? He's not hit his straps. He's not hit his straps yet. So if Afridi can get back there, because I think that it's generally accepted everywhere that Afridi is undercooked. As the team doctor himself said, maybe medicinally, maybe from a doctor's perspective, he's fit, but he hasn't had enough bowling behind him. So that is why that is looking a little different. I think Naseem Shah can also get a little expensive, but look down that Wasim and Haris Rauf are fantastic. But at the moment on given form, yeah, South Africa, because Nokia can be expensive sometimes, but he's just bowling so well. Nokia, Ngidi, Parnell, yeah, I mean, before the tournament or even during it, I would have said Pakistan, but yeah, South Africa.
Yeah, so there you go. Harsha's given his verdict on that one. Interesting. Hit the straps. We love origins of these phrases. Where is it from? We'll have to figure that out.
I think it's horse racing. I think it's horse racing because what happens is when your gait is correct, when you're holding the gait of the horse from the saddle, and if your horse is hitting the straps, means he's going full out. The straps are like fully extended and put. So I think in fact, the number of things that come from horse racing is absolutely unbelievable. From dead heat to winning hands down, all these are expressions which come from horse racing.
Well, at the moment, the starter's up.
I've actually Googled it.
You have?
I've actually Googled it. Yeah. It says get into one stride to be up. It dates from itinerant bush workers in Australia who would decamp, strap their various belongings together and be on their way, usually on horseback.
There you go. So you were right. And you've got to add the Australian angle to it. So without knowing it, we found an Aussie angle for a tournament that's happening in Australia. But Joy, that's not your question for the day. You have something slightly more cricket related, I presume.
More cricket related, but also, for a change, football related.
Okay, fair enough. Go for it.
Take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here goes. Who played their first international match in July 2007 and scored in an international football match less than a month later?
First international cricket match in July 2007, scored in an international football match less than a month later. I'm going to give this a try, not now, after the show is over. All of you.
You're talking about a team?
Sorry?
A team?
I'm not saying, no,
Is that a team?
individual.
Individual.
Oh, okay.
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 I know I'm going to give it a
Because you
guess,
say
but
who
all of
played
you,
there?
hashtag Cricbuzz Live, get your answers in.
I think, Harsha, you may have, there may be why you...
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, trust me, if you were to eavesdrop on our conversation once the show is over, we've got a triumvirate here who are all so hardcore into quizzing, you would not even imagine it. So it's going to be a bit of fun. For the moment, the only thing I'll quiz you on, gentlemen, is the inevitable number of runs. Pakistan batting first. They've had the wool over the eyes as far as South Africa are concerned since 2009. Will that continue? Will it be another victory by a number of runs? Firstly, they've got to put runs on the board. How many, Harsha Bhogle?
168.
168 under the Sydney par. Fair enough, but they've still got the attack to defend that. Joy?
I think 156, and if they get it, I think it could be a winning total.
156. Joy goes even lower. I'm going to go higher on that, just based on the ground and the fact that if it could happen to Bolt and Saudi the other day, it can happen even to the best bowling attack. So 175 is what I'm putting out for Pakistan. And I think if they get there...
I think 175 is enough to win it.
More than
if
enough.
If they make 175, they'll win it.
More than enough to win it. But it's an intriguing clash. Pakistan against South Africa. We told you the scenarios. A little more difficult in terms of Pakistan getting there. They need other results to go their way. South Africa much more in their own hands. But we won't go into those scenarios until we've actually finished this game. And then it'll be a lot clearer. That's all we have on the show. We'll see you in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox. Until then, from Harsha, Joy and myself, it's all on Cricbuzz Live.